Okay, so this is where it starts getting a little bit tricky because I already cut for the inside of my book, or my case, the 5.5 by, no, I'm sorry, the 5 by 12 inch strips. So it's going to be lined in black on the inside. To cover your chipboard and for the outside of the book, you need to think about how you want to place your paper so that, let me show it this way, so that this flap, you know, is what you want, and then what's coming up on this side all the way around to the back is how you want it. So on this one, I use 3 different sheets of paper. There's this one that has the little arrows and things, and it ends right in the back here. And then there's a kind of a plain piece that comes up around the top, and then at the very top, I have this Disney, you know, balloons. And I really liked what I was looking at that point. That's why it has like the Disney top here, and it shows like Mickey with like a fireworks and all that. So you really want to choose your paper and think, okay, how do I want this to look? So as I'm looking at this paper, I really like this design here with the bird and the gate, but it's kind of difficult to get it onto my paper the way I want it. So I'm gonna have to think about that for a minute and then cut my paper accordingly. But basically, you're gonna cut your paper so that's 6.5 inches wide, because you're gonna wrap it. It's gonna go around the front and then wrap around to the back a little bit. So I'm leaving 1/2 inch on each side to wrap around, which is plenty of paper. 1/4 inch is just too little, but 1/2 inch is about good. If you're really afraid, you can do 1 inch around each side that's gonna wrap around, and then you'll need to cut your paper at like 7.5 inches wide. So I'm going to choose what I want. I am going to use this gate one for the back, so I really don't care. That one can be cut anyway. It's just going to be cut at 6.5 inches wide by 12. But as far as this orange one, I'm going to think about it for a minute, and then when I come back, I'll have it cut, only because I'm not sure exactly how I want to arrange that, okay? So I'm trying to explain this as clear as I can, because it gets kind of confusing. You need to have enough paper to wrap around this whole thing in one piece, basically, to measure about 26 inches by 6.5 wide, right? Because we were talking about the width. You need to be about 6.5 inches wide so that you can wrap it around your chipboard. And the length of this whole thing all together is about just under 26 inches. So you need at least 26 inches of your cardstock or whatever's that you're using, your decorative papers. Now I cut my first piece of paper and I messed it up, so I had to pick something else, but I like this one actually better because it's a larger print and it kind of goes better with this orange, so it's okay. So these are 6.5 by 12 inches. They're just the regular 12 by 12 inch paper that I cut, so that I'd have two 6.5 inch pieces. I'm gonna try to, when I come back, because what I'm gonna do is bring out my sewing machine, because if you can see on this, I have a little bit of stitching holding the papers together because I thought that'd be cute instead of just being one paper to the next. So what I'm going to do is stitch them together. You don't have to do that. You can just put one in the other. I'm going to actually cut this last little piece because obviously these two pieces only measure about 24 inches when you put them together, and there's a little bit of overlap. This is another like 2.5 inch piece of just black that I'm going to be using at this bottom piece, okay? So I'm gonna kind of move up a little bit so you can see that better, and then we'll get started with some stitching, and then we'll start assembling our book, as far as our, what do you call it, a book? Okay, so our box. My little Singer Pixie I picked up like at what's that place called? Big Lots, for like $29, which is really good. They still sell, I think, at Walmart for maybe $39 or $49. Just a little purple machine. I'm sorry I had to come to this other table because my cord wouldn't reach. But what I'm gonna do with the black piece of cardstock is just punch with the Martha Stewart lace punch. Just a little bit off of there because I think that'd be cute, just have like a little bit of lace, something feminine. So I'm gonna put flowers and all this other stuff when I make the closure for this, so I thought, why not, let's just include something a little more like this, and hopefully I'm not cutting off too much off my piece of paper. So if you're gonna do this, I would recommend to have cut your piece of paper a little bit bigger. Maybe I'm gonna have to end up doing that, but like at 3.5, just so that you have enough paper to go around and extra, because if you have too little and then you sew it like I'm gonna do, you're gonna be very sorry. So this paper is gonna go around my box and around the top, and this piece is gonna be at the very front. So what I wanna do is just line it up just so that my little lacy part here is just over that piece, because I don't want to waste too much paper, but I need this to actually get sewn. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put my stitch to make a straight stitch, and not a really tight straight stitch, because you don't want to end up perforating your paper and just ripping the paper. So that wouldn't be good. And this thing is so funny. I mean, it's just a little toy. If you turn on the light, it's right here. Ooh, I don't know if you even noticed, that's a lot of light coming through. It's not very much of anything. And my paper, or what I'm stitching with, is orange thread. And that's just because I couldn't find my black and I wasn't going to spend the time right now to look for it. So I'm going to hopefully hold those together and try and stitch a nice straight line. Stitching on paper isn't the easiest thing ever, but it's doable. So let me try and get that started. Something's getting stuck here. Let me see what's wrong. Let's try that again. And we bring this down. And that one I just did a straight stitch because on the other one that I had shown you I did a zigzag, but I didn't want it kind of interfering with the design of the lace. So I'm going to pull that out. Just cut that off. It's not the straightest stitch ever, but kind of cute, gives a little more something. So this is going to wrap around my book. This is going to be the very lip of it, around the box, sorry, coming down. This next one is going to have to be sewn upside down, okay? Because what you're going to do is, this is where it's going to end, and it's going to wrap around to the front of your book, okay? If that makes sense. So you really want to sew it upside down is what you're going to do. So this is the back. Oh my gosh, I don't know how best to show you. The back, the very front of the book, the box going around. This is the inner where you're going to stick it to your chipboard. And it's going to come down, and this is the base of your, this will be right here, the base of your book, of your box, and then it's going to come up to the front. So that's why you want to do it upside down. Otherwise, it's going to be upside down when you do actually flip it up to go to the front of your book, okay? I hope that makes sense. It's kind of hard to see. But, so now I'm going to sew right across here, where these two things meet. And since this is kind of long, I'm going to kind of roll it, because with paper you're able to do that. And just get these two guys together as straight as I can. Takes a little finessing. Okay. Come on. Here we go. I need to get under this plate so I can actually close it, and then I'll be good. If that makes any sense. See, I struggle, we all struggle. Sewing isn't the funnest thing to do with your crafting projects sometimes, but it adds a lot of character. I like it. Okay, so I think right there is good. I'm going to close it. And now I'm going to be able to kind of mess with this. Alright, here we go. I'm going to have to hold on to this thing while I'm pushing. That's going to be interesting. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get started. And that way maybe once it's in, then now I can push it in. There we go. Alright, and try to keep it straight. Okay, and I'm going to go over it one more time, and I'll tell you why, because I did want that to be a zigzag. I forgot to change it so it's still a straight stitch. But I'm going to go over it with the zigzag. Just go right over that same where I did it. Really, you want it to, the zigzag to be right over where you overlapped your papers, okay? So I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back and complete our... So I hope that wasn't too confusing, but now I have this big, long strip of paper. If you have that long paper, maybe it might work, that Cricut paper that they're selling for the expression, you know, that longer piece. But so here I have that little piece that has the doily lace cut out, and then here we go to here with some stitching that came out not too great because I was just kind of in a hurry. I want to get this done. My son's taking a nap, but he only sleeps so long. So what you're going to do is turn it over so that the stitch side, the side you don't want, the pieces that you don't want are facing up. And this is going to be the top of my box, okay? So this top part here, what I call the top, the flap. So from there, what you're going to do is this piece of chipboard is the 5.5 by 3 inch piece of chipboard, which is this one. I have it marked 5.5 by 3 inches. Is going to be right at the very tip there, okay? Because that's going to be that part of it. And then the next one that's going to be in order is the 5.5 by 3.5. I should probably leave them up this way. I know it's kind of hard to see it anyway, but is gonna be your 5.5 by 3.5, which is this top part. So if this were laid out, this is basically what we're working on right now. Okay, if this was open up like this. So you have 5.5 by 3, 5.5 by 3.5. Then you're gonna have your larger piece that's 5.5 by 6. And then you're gonna have another piece right down here, the base of the box, that's 5.5 by 3.5. And then the very front of your box, which is gonna be 5.5 by 6.5 piece, okay? So I just laid them out so you can kind of have an idea of how that's gonna be. And we're gonna start with the 5.5 by 3 inch piece. And if you wanna use ATG, whatever glue you wanna use to glue this down, it's up to you. So I am going to add the glue to my chipboard. If you're gonna do ATG, you just ATG it real well. A lot of people like glue sticks for this kind of thing. You can do that however you want. I'm just really loading it up with glue. I probably would use a glue stick only because from the last one I did, it kind of bubbled a little bit, but if you don't have any air bubbles, then you shouldn't have a problem. But you're gonna place that so that you leave about, you know, your 1/2 inch sides and, you know, a quarter to 1/2 inch at the top. And I'm just gonna hold that down for a little bit. That's the only thing with wet glue is that it can warp your paper. So you want to use a fast drying glue. And if I had more ATG, I probably would just use my ATG because I like that better. Because now I'm gonna have to kind of wait for this to dry before I can go on to the next couple steps. But the next one, when you glue this down, you're gonna glue it so that it's 1/2 inch from the other side and 2 widths of your chipboard away from the last piece that you glued down. So that's what I was saying, if you have your little pieces of chipboard, just to hold on to them. It was just these 2 little pieces. Because what you're gonna do is layer 2 of them together. So I have these 2 pieces right next to each other. And I'm gonna lay that right in here. And then the next one is gonna be glued that far away, okay? Because that way when you come over to fold it over later, you're not making it so it's gonna end up tearing, okay? So you want at least 2 pieces of chipboard, but not too much because then you don't want it to be real floppy either, like really flip-floppy. So I'm gonna load this up with glue. Also, I'm doing it kind of thinly, like I said, I don't want my paper to warp. Okay, I'm gonna get my little guide. So I have at least 2 pieces of chipboard separating them. I'm gonna glue it down. The last thing you want to do is end up gluing this and then having it tear, because oh, that's just so disheartening. I mean, you can start over again, but you know, if you're already getting it going, it's sad when it doesn't work out. So I'm going to continue gluing these pieces down just like I did, 2 pieces away from each one till I get to the end, and we'll come back at that point. So I just stuck down my last piece here. So what you're going to do at the very corners, at the front and at the back, is just kind of trim that not real close to the edge of your chipboard, but not too far either. You're going to leave like a little, maybe 1/8 inch away from that, because when you fold it over, you don't want all that bulk there. And you're going to do the same thing for the other edge. This one, the little lip came out a little bit bigger, and that's okay. I just leave that extra paper. If there's a lot more than 1/2 inch, I just leave it. Doesn't hurt. So what you're going to do at this point is what we call train your paper. You're going to kind of fold it up. If you want to bring this up like this and fold it so that the paper starts folding, because you're going to bring it around the edge of your chipboard, okay? And the reason you kind of do this is because you want it to flatten out on that very edge. I know your chipboard's not, you know, super thick. Well, at least mine isn't, but you still want it to kind of come around real nice and tight. And so for this part, you do want ATG or some kind of glue that's going to hold it pretty much instantly, to hold it nice and tight, okay? I hope you can kind of see what I'm doing. Let me close up just a little bit. It's always hard to guess, like, is it better to close up this much or not much, or, you know. So we're gonna do the same thing for both sides. Just really train that edge to come around and be nice and flush against that little edge there. Okay, across the whole thing, because you want it to be nice and crisp. And this is kind of how you make like a book binding, when you make your books or your binders for your mini albums and things. You just want to really get it right in there. And I'm going to use this duck. I wouldn't recommend this. I would rather use my ATG brand glue for this, but since I don't have it with me, we're going to use this, and we're going to say it's going to work just fine. So I'm going to you can put the glue on the actual flap if you prefer to, all the way down and across. Let me cut these guys off. But I would do all one side and then another, so I just did that a little bit crooked, a little backwards, sorry. You really want to get close to the edge of where your chipboard and your paper meet. And that's just so that you won't have too much of a gap there. You don't want it to kind of get really bubbly there. So starting at one edge, I would come down and with my bone folder, coming right behind it and really, really, really get that laid in there, okay? You can see what I'm doing. So I'm kind of burnishing that so it's nice and flat. Okay, all across. I'm kind of pushing it in, making sure that I have this nice crisp edge on the very side of my book and pushing it in towards the whole thing, okay? So I'm gonna do the same on the other side and then we'll come back. And the same for our very little edges here, the very top and the bottom edge. You're gonna do those last because it just looks neater to kind of bring that in over the parts that you already stuck down. And I'm gonna trim this little piece of string there, and this time I'm going to put it here only because it's such a small piece and it's just easier for me to do that way. And we're going to bring it up, and again with our bone folder just kind of really stick that down. Okay, so you have this nice crisp folded edge, okay? And we're going to do the same thing for this back side. And this part's going to get covered with your lining, so like I said, since this piece is kind of longer than the rest of it, it's not going to really hurt anything. We're going to cover that up anyway. But if it bothers you, you can always trim it down. It's not going to make a difference. Okay. So now what we can do is kind of start folding this just to kind of train it and say, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to be folding this way, okay? Kind of give it a little close kind of. So actually if I back up, let me see if I can do that. I can show you. This is your top, this is your flap, the top, the back side, your base, and this piece here. So this is basically the box. Not too shabby, huh? Looking out pretty cute. And see, it's empty right now. So now what we're going to do is come in, and I need to put more, I'm going to put some liquid glass right here because it's kind of coming up. I brought my liquid glass because it dries really fast, so it's another good alternative to this kind of stuff. Is we're going to get our 2 pieces of the cardstock that we cut at 5 by 12, and basically you're going to overlap them because if you can see, this one only reaches so far, and then from here, this is actually the base of your, actually this is the base of your book, so this is the back part, so people aren't going to see it at all. You're going to overlap the next one and let that go out to cover the front, okay? And so I'm going to stick this down just with my craft bond again. I would probably be using ATG for this. But what you're going to do is, see, this is what, you kind of have to decide how you want to do it. If you want to glue on your box, you're going to have to really know where you're putting this. But if you glue it on your paper, you're just a little more, you already have a better idea of where your glue needs to go. But I would go all around the edges. And if this is ATG, I do exactly the same way, go all around the edges. And then I'm also going to put some glue here on all these. And I think that's about as far as this one goes anyway. So I just spread glue all around, and this one has it all around the edges. So I'm going to square this up with about 1/4 inch in from the edges all around and bring her straight down, okay? Now, if this is a dry glue, like your ATG, you could pretty much immediately after you do these 2 steps, after you apply this and then the next piece, you could just go ahead and train your thing to fold there. But I'm gonna have to wait till it's completely dry since it is a wet glue. So I have that one down, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing for this other side. and just put my glue, oops, on the very edges. And this will probably be a good place to take a break anyhow for the next part, because we still need to make our front and then add our assembly for the actual little pockets next. So again, 1/4 inch from all the edges, and line them up as best you can. Oops. And I'm just going to be massaging this for a minute until it really stays down and looks nice and crisp. And then when we come back, I'll show you what I mean by training them. And then we're going to put in our assembly and decorate the front.